With more than 100 years of experience, Mitas is one of Europe's leading motorcycle tyre brands. Whether you ride on the trails, enduro, on the road or on adventures, Mitas have the tyres for you. If they're good enough for the likes of Chris Birch and Paul Tarris, they're good enough for me and our Noel. For more information, go to mitas-moto.com. Go the distance with Mitas tyres.
Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast.
Hello everybody, back again. Do you know much about electric bikes? No, nor me. But I did have a lovely, interesting chat at this year's ABR with a guy called Robert Portman from Zero Motorcycles. And I thought this would be a really good opportunity to get Robert on the show and to tell us a little bit more about them. Robert's a great guy. He's an ex-superbike racer from South Africa. He is very open and honest about the positives and the downsides of electric motorbikes. And I thought this was something that potentially is going to come our way. Maybe, maybe not. I just thought it'd be good to hear a little bit more about them. Right, let's go on with it. Well, it's nice to see you again, Robert. We actually met at ABR this year, back in June. I was invited to go and talk on the TRF. I was going to say stage, but it's not a stage. Go and sit in the TRF comfy chairs and talk about electric bikes. And I'm thinking, what do I know about electric bikes? Very little. But we ended up having quite a good chat, didn't we, with you, I, and Nathan Millward, who's got some very strong opinions about electric bikes. But after that chat, I thought you'd be a fantastic person to get onto the podcast to give a little bit more information about what's currently available and where electric bikes are going. And also, you've got quite an amazing riding history as well. So I thought you'd be a fantastic person to speak to on the podcast. So let me introduce Robert Portman from Zero Motorcycles to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast.
Yeah, Clive, thank you so much for having me. It was a great meeting you and having that, I don't know if we can call it a discussion. It quickly led to a debate, but it's brilliant. And, it's the kind of thing that I love because everyone that knows me, I'm a very open book, so I tell it like it is. So I think what is refreshing and what needs to be is the open, honest conversation, the good, the bad, the ugly of EVs. Sometimes it's thrown down people's throat and that's what puts them off. So when we have the opportunity to have an open discussion about it, I'm always available. So thank you so much for having me. Robert Portman, 43 years old, living in the UK, originally from South Africa, grew up there. Motorcycle nutter, sports bikes is my love, professional racer for 15 years, superbike racer there. Moved across to the UK just almost 4 years ago now, been with Zero Motorcycles for 3 years, started off as UK marketing only, but have now progressed into the European office and handle dealer marketing for the whole European network and events.
Tell us a little bit about your riding history. I'm intrigued to know about your superbike riding.
I wanted to be a football player in South Africa, funnily enough, but my father was a motorcycle nutter, so the natural progression into that bought me a Suzuki RG Gamma 50, was my first ever race bike. I had the Pee-wee 50s growing up and the Suzuki DS 80 and all the usual bikes growing up. Fell in love with motorcycles straight away. It's not hard to do that. And then, just took my racing journey onwards and upwards, won many regional titles in Johannesburg, South Africa, Northern Regions titles, progressed to national level, managed to have a fantastic 15-year racing career. My highlight probably finishing third in the National Supersport 600 Championship in 2010 against the likes of Steven Orendahl, who's just recently won the Spanish Superbike Championship and Races World Endurance. Another key highlight of mine, and probably overshadows the rest of my racing career, is that I was actually Brad Binder's rider coach for just over a year. Brad Binder, of course, is South Africa's MotoGP star. Got a very good relationship with them, still do. So I just grew up the sporty side of motorcycles, loved racing motorcycles on track. Never really transitioned to the roadside, but we'll talk about that a bit more later. And then after the racing, went into the journalistic side of motorcycling, owned my own PR companies, my own magazines back in South Africa until I made the move here to the UK to start a new life for me and my family.
A lot of people I know travel to South Africa to ride some of the dirt out there. The opportunities to ride off-road seem unlimited. Was that never something that...
It never was. As I said, my love for motorcycles has always been sports bikes. On a racetrack, I know where I'm going. I know what's coming. I can push the bike to the absolute limit. And that's where I struggled with the road, is I didn't know my environment. I didn't feel safe. I couldn't push the bike to the limit. If I'm on a motorbike, I want to ride it as fast and hard as I can. If you put me on the road and I've got robots and cars and dogs and cats and pedestrians, it kind of takes away the fun for me. So South Africa is the ideal setting to go ride your BMW GS, your KTM Super Adventure. It's just got, as you said, endless paths and beautiful surroundings to go ride. I went on a couple of world launches and local launches that happened in South Africa, most noticeably Cape Town, and Namibia even had some beautiful riding areas. And while I enjoyed it, it was just never my cup of tea, getting dirty and riding through mud and dirt. The slow riding stuff, I think, is more key to why I couldn't really connect with trail and off-road riding. I wanted to go as fast as I could. And when there's trees and stuff in the way, I couldn't do that. So while I enjoy it, it's not my first love to motorcycling.
Yeah, you might be on the wrong podcast, Robert.
Although now that I'm getting into my 40s and I've done more, the ABR festivals, and with Zero releasing more off-road focused products, I'm getting into it more. And I must say I'm enjoying it more than I thought I would. Yeah, still give me a superbike around a racetrack, and that's my first love.
It's one of those things, the older you get, the faster you used to be.
Yeah, I'm having to come to terms with that very quickly.
Did you move to the UK specifically for the job with Zero, or were you moving here anyway with the family and you found yourself at Zero?
More family safety-based decision, 2 beautiful young kids and a wife. Also felt like I'd reached my peak in South Africa with the motorcycle industry. It just felt like I was being strangled there. I wanted to go and explore more. So I had a British passport, or have a British passport through my father and family. Made the move. My mom and sister live here already. Actually going to live the dream. I was going to get a job with MCN, test bikes, and, just carry on doing that side. With the restrictions of the family and with the kids, I struggled to find that perfect job. I wanted to be a BSB commentator. I wanted to go and work in MotoGP. I did that for 13 rounds in 2022 with Darren Binder, who was racing MotoGP back then. I managed to get in there and do some stuff, but it was too much time away from the family and stuff. So I was really battling to find a job that kind of catered for the family side and obviously making a living and working side. And that's when I met Dale Robertson through a contact through MotoGP, funnily enough. Chris Berryman, who's very much involved with MotoGP, he said to me, listen, if you want to work in the motorcycle industry in the UK, you've got to meet my next door neighbor, Dale Robinson. And funny enough, I went one night, stayed with Chris Berryman. Him and Dale did a track day out at Knockhill in Scotland. Freddie Spencer also happened to be there, so I got to spend some time with Freddie Spencer as well at Chris's house. And then I stayed at Dale Robinson's house, and then we got talking, and he said to me, listen, there's a job opportunity coming up as marketing manager for Zero Motorcycles UK. It's not right now, but in a couple of months, something that you could be good at. And that conversation started and things just rolled on. And within 5-6 months, after doing a couple of events and stuff for Zero Motorcycles UK and Dale, I got the job as the marketing man for the UK, and then have since progressed onto the European network for dealer marketing and events, as I said.
Well, I'm going to have to remember that name, see if I can get myself a job in the motorcycle industry as well.
He does. He knows everyone. You can't go anywhere without anyone knowing Dale. He was a great contact to have.
Do you know much about the history of Zero Motorcycle? Obviously, they're relatively new in the scheme of things, but they have been around for nearly 20 years, right?
It's celebrating 20 years next year. We're actually celebrating it this year at the EICMA show, where we always have a big stand. I've been forced to learn more, and I've enjoyed learning more about Zero. To cut a long story short, former NASA engineer Neil Seiki, in his garage one day, just looked at this and went, there could possibly be a easier, better way to commuting. So he kind of got a bicycle chassis and frame and all kind of bits and pieces, as NASA engineers do, put it all together in a real dinosaur way. I just kind of envision a guy taking a bunch of Duracell batteries, taping them together and taping it to a bicycle chassis, but it was a lot better than that. It was an engineer here. That's where it all started, in a garage in California somewhere. This dream started. It started as Electric Cross, which was a basic kind of off-road trail kind of electric bike. And 20 years later, it's evolved to the leading electric power sport motorcycle company on the planet, and one that, as far as I can see, doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. The range is growing, the product line's growing, the dealer network's growing. So yeah, it's going from strength to strength.
Talk to us about the range of motorcycles then. From what I can see online, there's 4 distinct ranges: S, DS, FX, and the new X line.
So yeah, for the past 3 years that I've been involved with the company, it was very much just the S, DS, and FX line. So S being the street line, your naked sports bikes, your DS being your dual sports, and the DSRX adventure bike that we have. The FX being also a bit of a crossover. So you've got your everyday street kind of commuter, but that's also capable of green laning and off-road riding. The FXE was a super motard style ultimate everyday commuting machine. If you could picture a super motard that's got more torque or on par torque with an R1 superbike in a 130 kilo chassis, you can imagine the fun that you could have going in and out of traffic. Since the middle of this year, it was announced end of last year at EICMA, we've introduced the X line, which is, we call them low power vehicles, but it's an entry point, more of an entry point into the Zero brand. Up until now, the cheapest entry point was the FX or FXE, and you were looking at between 11 and 13,000 pounds. That was the biggest problem that I identified when I joined the brand, was like, it was great, and my love for Zero, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but it didn't start off well, and it kind of grew into what it is now. But I always looked at it and went, this is great, but who's got 13,000 pounds to just try something out? And that's very much what it is you were trying a completely different thing. Yes, it's a motorcycle, but you were trying something completely different. So now with the X line, we've got a much easier entry point into the brand, starting at just under 4,000 pounds for the XB, close on 6,000 pounds for the XE. Again, road going bikes, but they very much are more trail off-road focused bikes, but they are bikes that have mirrors and capabilities to ride on the road. So yeah, we've expanded the range, and exciting that there is more to come in the low power vehicle range in the next year or so.
It's interesting you should say that. You've mentioned commuting a lot on the lower power range, and we will talk about the mile range rather than the range of motorcycles, but it's something that Fort9 said. It's that electric motorbikes are possibly being pitched at the wrong audience, because the mile range is still somewhat limited. It's not a car. You can't pack as many batteries in. And he said they should be aimed at people that want to go out and have some fun, or want to do the daily commute, and you can come home and you can charge the battery overnight every day. And it's absolutely perfect for that. Trials bikes, electric trials bikes, seem to be really gaining some momentum as well. I guess that is what the X line is all about, right?
Absolutely. It's that entry point. Range doesn't come into the conversation, because you're not going to go buy a low power vehicle expecting it to do 100, 120, 150 miles. You're buying it for the purpose of, if you want to do a small commute, 10, 15, 20 miles, 30 miles to and from work, you can do it on the road. And then on the weekends, if you want to take the mirrors off and the number plate off and go do some proper off-road riding and trail riding, you can. As we kind of experienced at this year's ABR festival, we completely battered those bikes on the Dunlop course that they had. And it was quite a tricky course. Both the XB and XE passed the test with flying colors. They were put to the test by experienced riders, newbie riders that flipped them because they didn't realize how much torque they have, threw them into trees, threw them into fences. They really were abused, and they passed the test. I agree with Fort9. As a commuting machine, electric makes perfect sense. Any one of our bikes, if you're within that 140-mile range of a commute to and from work, so you're literally unplugging in the morning on a full charge, going to work, coming back, plugging overnight. There's no charging hassle or worry during the day. No range anxiety comes into play. You do not, and I will put my hand on this, you do not and will not get a better application than an EV motorcycle, especially a Zero, because it fits ideally into that. It's when riders want the longer range and the charging network and infrastructure and range anxiety comes into play, where the restrictions are, in many people's minds still are, and I agree that they are there. But as I've got to learn being with Zero, and this is through trial and error, and I've been lucky enough to have the time to experience on our bikes, there's ways around it, and there's ways to get the best out of these bikes.
That said, some of the SRS I looked at is capable of 124 miles an hour and 170-mile range. I think maybe that's the second highest range. There is a performance element there as well, right?
Absolutely. So the SRS is the sports touring model that we have. So the fully fared version of our naked sports bike, the SRF. So the S has just got the fairing, slightly higher bars, slightly lower pegs, more for open road sports touring. That 170-mile range, I will say, is very much slow speed kind of town commuting, B roads with a little bit of highway thrown in. Honestly speaking, the best range I've got out of an SRS with more highway B roads and commuting is 150-mile range. But again, on the flip side of that, we've got the Blood Bikers serve here using an SRS, and they've been quoted as getting up to 240 miles max out of a full charge, purely because they in that London environment, start, stop. So you're on the throttle, off the throttle, eco mode. Every time you're off the throttle, you got regen. So you're kind of maintaining the battery charge. You're pouring more energy in. You're not using as much. So in a start, stop, again, that a commuting environment, these motorcycles shine.
And you can also buy, is it a power tank accessory?
You got two options. You got a charge tank, which basically takes the standard 6.6 kilowatts of charging, which is standard on the SRF, our premium bikes. It doubles that. So you get almost 13 kilowatts of charging. So then what would be call it an hour charge on a public infrastructure now becomes half an hour. Your half an hour becomes 15 minutes.
Okay, so it's not additional battery power, it just speeds up the charging?
Yeah, the charge tank is faster charging, elevates your charge times, whereas you can get a power tank which basically adds another battery and extends your journey. So your 170 or 150 mile range goes over 200 mile range.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Today's exciting episode is brought to you by Adventure Specs Super Shirt 2.0.
2.0?
Yep, it's a new version. It's got the flow armour, which is a lot more breathable, and yet it's still CE AA rated. So it gives you both impact protection and abrasion resistance.
It's an absolute game changer.
It is actually, because you completely forget you've got it on. The armour's really soft. I even find myself checking to see if I've actually remembered to put it on sometimes.
It still feels wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But it's the first thing I put on for all motorcycling activities, basically. I even wore it and you mocked me when we were doing some trials practice.
Thank God you were wearing it that day, because I don't think you'd be with us today if you hadn't been wearing it when you got on the trials bike.
It wasn't that bad. It's even been crash tested on an actual human, which I don't think any other garment has ever been tested that way.
They threw a man down a runway wearing one, didn't they?
It's actually quite scary to watch, but he came away unscathed, which is pretty good news.
What do you wear over the top of yours?
Well, you know I'm a bit of a hipster, so it's usually a check shirt and a very long beard.
Just something to hide the coffee stains?
Yes, the very rare blend espressos that I normally drink.
Nice.
So there are sizes for all from small to, I think, triple XL. It's quite stretchy as well, so it'll fit women, and it fits fatties like me too. To get your super shirt, head to adventurespec.com. Right, nobody likes talking about crashing, but if you ride, especially off the beaten path, it's something we all have to think about. As adventure riders, we often find ourselves in remote areas, sometimes with no traffic for miles. And even if you're riding with mates, if you go down in a ditch or behind a rock face, it might take a while before they realise or even find you. And those minutes, they can be life critical. That's where Real Rider comes in. It's the only government-certified automatic crash detection app for motorcyclists with a direct ambulance service connection. If you crash and can't respond, it sends your exact location with medical info straight to emergency services. So help is on the way fast. And yet, we all drop our bikes from time to time. Real Rider knows the difference. With smart features that filter out false alarms, way more reliable than your smartwatch SOS. That's why it's trusted with a direct connection to ambulance services. It works across the UK, Europe, North America, Australia and New Zealand. And beyond crash detection, you also get group ride features, route recording, and most of all, peace of mind. No tracking your speed, no data to insurers, just safety, not snitching. Real Rider Premium for less than the price of a coffee per month. Download it now, ride protected, explore further. As I said, I've never ridden an electric motorcycle. How do you actually ride one? How do you start one? How do you know it started? What do you do to ride it? There's no clutch, there's no gears. Presumably you press the start button and off you go, right?
It's a different emotion, but it still carries that same love for motorcycles. The best way to explain it is my first experience on a Zero. I've been hired to do this job. Dale's handed me the keys to an SRF and said, go, this is going to be our first meeting, meet you there. Showed me the apps you download to find where the nearest charge station. Once you become an owner of an electric motorcycle or car, there's these kind of steps that you need to take. Download the right apps, find these little wins that are going to make your journey a lot easier. Typical sports bike, motorcycle rider is, shut up, it's a motorbike. Give me that key, turn it on. You turn it on, there is no kind of noise, so that's the first thing you do notice is, am I in gear here? Am I not? And that's the first thing that people do get caught out of. There's no activating it from neutral into first gear. Once that bike's on, the kill switch is on, the green light's on, it's live. You twist that throttle, and on our SRS, SRF, and DSRX models, our premium models, you've got almost double World Superbike torque. You've got 229 Newton meters available on our DSRX. I mean, it's incredible, and it's instant. There's no delay from battery to throttle. There's no bad fuel going through injectors. It's just direct power. You twist the throttle, and off you go. So me being this trigger-happy sports bike guy, turn the bike on, okay, figure out no clutch, no gears. It's just twist and go. It's plug and play. So I ride this bike, realize, cool, my first stop is in 80 miles. That's more than enough time. I'll have more than enough range and whatever. So I put this thing in sports mode and I ride this thing flat out as fast as it can go, loving every second, grinning like a child, waking up on Christmas and there's 150 presents under the tree. It's almost an element of surprise when you ride an electric bike for the first time because you twist the throttle. I still get surprised every time. I've done thousands and thousands of miles, and every time I twist the throttle in sport mode, I grin and I smile. It's crazy. So off I go, flat out, and quickly realize that you do have to manage the throttle and how you ride it a little bit more than your petrol bike, because my range was just doing this. And what I didn't realize at that time was our bikes adjust the range to how you're riding. So if you're in sports mode flat out, that range is just going to climb down. And that's where range anxiety comes in. So now I'm panicking on the motorway thinking, I've only done 30 miles and it was showing me 140 miles when I left. And I've got 40 miles left. What the hell is going on? Luckily, make it to my destination, but now I'm literally on zero. Excuse the pun. Find the charge station. Luckily, the charge station that I find is working. Plug it in, and the first thing it shows me is it's going to take 3 hours to charge to full. So I'm going, well, this is horrendous. I've got to be at my meeting in an hour and a half. I built in a little bit of time for charging, but not 3 hours. So I've plugged this in and I've gone, okay, well, this is it. So I walk to the cafe, have my breakfast, a little bit of something to eat, and waste a bit of time, as much time as I can, get to the bike and eventually go, well, I can't wait 3 hours. I've got to just go and limp as slowly as I can to where I need to go. When I got to my final destination, this is when I was questioning my life decisions. Am I the right man to be working for Zero Motorcycles and an electric bike company? Because I was not very impressed. While I loved the riding experience, I was not impressed with the range and how to charge it and everything. Subsequently to that, I've had the time to learn. I've had the time to adapt. And there are ways and means to do this. First of all, I got everything wrong. If you're going on a long distance ride, you don't put it into sport mode and ride it as fast as you can. You put it into eco mode and get on the motorway. Eco mode restricts you to 70 mile an hour. So you hit a brick wall because obviously that's where it drains the battery the most. Second of all, find B roads. Go explore, find B roads. These bikes thrive on off throttle because in eco mode you get the regen.
And why wouldn't you do that anyway on a motorbike?
Well, exactly. Again, I was just blown back by the thrilling ride that I didn't even think of all these things. So anyway, take the B roads, go the B roads, let the bike on and off. And these bikes thrive on B roads because of the acceleration, no gears, no clutch. You get to a car and you want to quickly overtake, wondering what RPM am I in, what gear am I? You just twist and that power is available wherever you want it and off you go. And another beauty about these motorbikes, Clive, while I'm talking about corners, is the low center of gravity. So all the weight is the battery. The top, the tank, that's all plastic, that's all storage. The battery is the main source of weight and it's put low down so you have this low center of gravity, which gives you balance, stability and control like I have felt on no other motorcycle. And I have tested every single motorcycle there is out there, from Ducati Panigales to BMW HP4s to BMW GSs to Honda Hornets, everything. Nothing comes close to stability, control and balance like a Zero because of that weight. There's no mechanical interference. There's no clutch wanting to do one thing this side. There's no oil doing this. There's no petrol. There's none of that interference. I don't know if you've experienced it, but I've certainly have on a combustion bike. You get to a roundabout, and sometimes, the fronts want to fall over, and because especially at slow speeds, they don't like it. You don't get any of that. When you throw this motorcycle into a corner, it is planted. It's just solid. It's the most incredible thing ever. Anyway, then the third probably biggest mistake I made on my first journey on a Zero was, I plugged it into a charge station. I plugged it into the complete wrong charger. So while that bike could charge at 6.6 kilowatts, I plugged it into a 3 kilowatts. It was like getting a petrol pump that could only put out 3 drops every 10 minutes. I was literally restricting the bike's capability. So again, that was me. And I didn't know. I just thought a charger is a charger and you plug it in. So all those little failings, because of my lack of knowledge, counted against the Zero and EV and made me hate it. Eventually, riding back in a much better, calmer, smarter way, got back with no problems, charged at the right place, but, did everything right. Kind of forced myself that this is the job, it's a perfect working conditions for me. I've got to make this work. Have done thousands and thousands of miles on Zero now, and now know, because I know the product, I know the best how to get out of it. I know which charge stations to do. I know which maps to do. I know everything. Give me a Zero any day of the week and I'll ride it to wherever you want me to ride it.
You mentioned the characteristics of the engine, but you can do an awful lot with the software, right? Not just on riding modes, but also things like you have a tip-over sensor which will cut the engine out. Thing that I really like the idea of, maybe it's my age, you can put them in reverse.
Absolutely, you can, which has come to my aid, thankfully, at many events, especially with our big FST bikes. The 230 kilo DSRX or 240 kilo DSRX doesn't like to move itself up and down ramps sometimes. So yeah, we've got a reverse gear, and it's software. If I look back at my younger days, it was a PlayStation, and you used to get your PlayStation, you can unlock it, add extra RAM. There's so much you can do with it. You met one of our Zero Hero tech junkies at ABR, Liam, who was there also. We eventually dragged him on stage to help with the debate as well. But he was very much one of those guys who bought a Zero because of the tech side, early adopter, wanted to find out more, and he's absolutely fallen in love with it. And he always talks to me about he's done this and he's opened this and I sit there and I just kind of smile and wave because I don't fully understand that side. But yes, there's endless possibilities almost to it.
What kind of people are buying Zeros and what are they doing with them?
I've always said I take my hat off to the early adopters of Zero, to anyone that bought the first renditions of Zero, especially pre-2023, because they were really real-life testers for the company. They loved it, but there were massive failings to it because it was real-world testing. So especially here in the UK, from what I found out, speaking to more Zero owners at events, is, salt on the roads, rain, we're getting into the electrics. So I really do take my hat off to those early adopters who were very much, again, the tech junkies who saw this motorcycle, it's EV, I can plug it in, I can do all these things. Those still are, but were the early adopters of Zero motorcycles. They've since evolved. I'm getting a lot more at events, riders like Liam, who looked at it and went, this can fit into what I need for a motorcycle. I want to go do my little bit of adventure riding, but I'm not one of these guys that wants a GS I'm not going to sit and do 240 miles at a time and ride for 3 hours at a time. First of all, need a motorcycle that's going to be cheap to commute, cheap to maintain, which a Zero is, because as he said on the stage, and I've used this quote, I drag Liam wherever I can. He does a 600-mile commute a week and it costs him just under £5 because he's figured out how to charge it overnight on the lesser rates and. And his maintenance is 45 minutes a year. It's adjust the belt and maybe a little bit of software and check your brake fluid and brake pads.
It's one thing I read today about the engine. It's got one moving part. No oil changes, no filter changes.
Nothing. There's 45 minutes maintenance a year. That's a plus in the column of Zero and EV. There are some negatives and cons that we'll probably dive into. But again, I just try and this is where a lot of people have evolved. They've come to our stand at the NEC 3 years ago and said, I'll never buy an electric, waste of time, blah, 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 blah. You've had the conversation, this kind of conversation, and they've kind of been opened up to a little bit more, and great. And what really kind of patted us on the back was last year's NEC, one of those guys that I'd met first time at the end of the year 2022 NEC came to our stand and wanted to just badger us on how we're the evil and you're useless and get out of here. Come to me and said, after your conversation, I realized that my big, heavy adventure bike that I thought I was going to go touring thousands and thousand miles on, I wasn't doing that. So I had this big, expensive motorcycle that I was doing realistically 200 miles a week on, commuting, and then the odd adventure ride on the weekends with my mate, but not doing this 300 miles at a time. And then when I got the first kind of build to now go do the first major service, realizing I got to do cams, and your conversation of 45 minutes a year popped in my mind. Went and discovered the DSRX, same kind of look and feel as the adventure bike that this customer had, climbed on it, went for a test ride, loved it, learned more about it, and now he rides a DSRX to and from work, and it costs him an absolute fraction of what his previous adventure bike was. So those are slowly those early adopters, which were just tech junkies wanting to get in early and find out what it's about. We're starting to get more of these riders coming to the realization that this bike that I have in my garage is not fit for purpose. This could be, I've tried it out, and it now is.
There's been a few electric motorcycle manufacturers come and go, people like Fuel, Energica, Alta and Cake. Obviously, Zero have been here probably the longest and are going to be here for some time to come. What are you guys doing differently?
We've got a very good CEO in Sam Parshall. He's very good at going to investors, getting investment because of the project that's ahead and the fact that Zero has been the leader from day one. Our dealer network's expanding every time. But I've said it to so many people, the biggest difference with Zero is, yes, there's fast charging and you can build this electric motorcycle that's got all the answers. All the range you want, fast charge times, everything you want. But that's going to come at a massive price tag. And a couple of these other companies did those things and were beautiful and fantastic to ride and look at. And there's some products on the market now that are just that, offer the fast charging, the high range, everything you could want from a motorcycle, especially an EV motorcycle. But the price tag's not there. And we've learned that now, especially in a market that's becoming ever more demanding and price is becoming ever more of a factor. You know, cash is king, and we need to bring the price down. So what Zero have done the best out of all of these is brought the best production version of an electric motorcycle to the market. Yeah, it costs a little bit more than its combustion counterparts, but that's an upfront cost. As I said to you, the servicing and the longevity of the product is where you're going to save your money. But Zero have got this product and this range of motorcycles that cater for every single license category. We've got motorcycles that cater for riders that are just on car licenses. So your moped, you don't even want to go do your full license. Your A1 CBT learner legal can ride our S model, which is a full-blown motorcycle. So you're not restricted to a 125cc motorcycle and the restrictions of that. I don't want to be a 43-year-old guy rocking up to a cafe with my mates on a scooter or a little 125cc. You can rock up on a Zero S now, which has got more torque than an R1 superbike. It has got fully adjustable shower suspension. It's got a full trellis chassis. It's a naked sports motorcycle. You know what I mean? So you can ride that on a CBT learner legal license. And that's the beauty. We've got so many riders.
I'm not sure we should advertise that. If anybody hears that, the laws might change.
It's actually incredible how you can ride that on a CBT, if I'm being honest. I know 5 current S owners in the UK that are of my age and older and gone, the beauty about this is that exact reason. I will never go through the hassle of doing my full motorcycle license. It's a pain. I don't have the time to do it. But what I can do is do my CBT. And I've got a Zero S that I can, the one guy still keeps it in Spain and he goes and commutes when he goes on holiday in Spain. But it becomes that there's an option. Whereas before, I want to ride a motorcycle, but don't want to be restricted to a 125. Our motorcycles open that. So what Zero have done is they've created this range that identifies and targets a wider range of motorcycle riders, from newbies to fully experienced, from everyday street to full-blown adventure with our DSRX, and now the X-Line, which is trail, off-road riding and all those kind of things. And they do it at a much better competitive price point because we haven't gone full-blown with CCS charging, which everyone wants on our motorcycles because we're still restricted to AC, which is a slower type of public charging, but it's because of price. We can go put CCS charging in our bikes, but then these people are people that are complaining, I want to buy a Zero, but it's too expensive. Well, if we add CCS and Brembo and Olands and all those fancy bits, then they're going to be a 30, 35, 40 grand mark. Then we're really not going to be selling motorcycles. At the moment, we're in a competitive price point, and I think that's what sets the difference. And the fact that we've been doing it the longest. As you said, we've been doing it for 20 years. We've done all the development. So while these companies have started on the back of what Zero has done and unfortunately not made it work, Zero has just carried on.
You've also got some very big investors with huge interests, presumably in supporting you to develop the technology. So it does increase the range and all that kind of stuff. So people like Hero and Polaris have put tens of millions of pounds in. So that's great. That gives you some kind of faith that the technology will improve. I think Zero's first bikes, the bigger ones, was like 11 kilowatt hours. You're now up to 17.3 kilowatt hours. So that is a massive improvement, isn't it, in a relatively short period of time?
Exactly. And, with the Polaris and Hero investment, as you said, that's just helped amplify things, make more funds available for development and research and all those kind of things. We've got a great partnership with Polaris. We supply them with a lot of our powertrains and our technology. A lot goes towards them. We've got a great partnership now with Hero, where we're doing a partnership with a potential everyday commuter, and Hero being one of, if not the biggest motorcycle manufacturer on the planet. To have that backing is also confidence for anyone buying a Zero. You know that we've got that backing. As an employee, I know it is. If I looked at us and going, well, we're getting money from these little companies all over, I'd be, oh, geez, I don't know how secure my job is. I look at the backing of that and everything that I now see going on in the background that I can't say, but it's just very confidence inspiring. As you said, this company is not going anywhere soon, and we're bringing out more brilliant models. And as you said, if you look at the evolution from something that started as a small little 11 kilowatt, which we still have, but in a much better and more sufficient platform, but now we're up to 17.3 kilowatts in our DSRX, SRS, and SRF premium models, which is basically your engine size. So 11 kilowatt being, I always use this in layman terms, your 125cc equivalent. But always remember, EV is always going to have higher, especially torque figures, because of battery, direct from battery to throttle, and there's no resistance or mechanical interference. So while it's a 125cc equivalent, your spec sheet figures are always going to be amplified in terms of horsepower and torque and stuff. Horsepower, not so much, because it's got to hit the legal requirements. But something that I still don't quite wrap my head around is electric bikes are measured on rolling power. So that's why an 11 kilowatt or a CBT Learner Legal 0S with more torque than an R1 can be passed in that, because its rolling power is 11 kilowatts, which is 125cc. Then our 17.3 kilowatts, our bigger bikes, are effectively our 600 to 800cc equivalents, you could call it. But again, your torque figures, especially while we've got 100 and 110 horsepower, which is about the right equivalence, your torque figures are double, almost triple of what the CC equivalent would be.
Yeah, I think for the SRS it's 111 HP and it weighs 235 kilos as well. So it's fairly equivalent, as you say, to an 800 or 900cc motorcycle.
Exactly the same. The only difference, like I said, you'll feel there is the acceleration. You twice the amount of torque that equivalent combustion bike would have. And with the weight distribution, the low center of gravity of where the battery is, get, as I said, control, balance and stability like you would never feel before.
We mentioned kilowatt hours. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of kWh, kilowatt hours, is it's the sort of the battery storage capacity. It's like your petrol tank, effectively. So the bigger that number is, the further you're going to be able to travel at a consistent speed, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I'm also not technical at all. We've got people that we pay to do the technical stuff. I do the talking stuff and the riding stuff and the marketing stuff. Essentially, that's what it is. That battery case is storing that much energy. So you're charging at 6.6 kilowatts standard on those bikes. If it's a 17.3 kilowatts, you can work out the charge times in it. It's basically how much energy you've got stored in the battery to take you on your journey. The beauty about a DSR model, A2 licensed bikes, for instance sake, would start life as a 15.4 kilowatts or 15.6 kilowatts. I can never remember the numbers. But you can then, when you buy that bike as an A2 licensed bike, as you progress in your riding, so you get your full license and you want more now, you can unlock the capability of that bike to become a 17.3 kilowatt. Again, as you mentioned earlier, it's simply just through software. That is another tick in the box of EV and Zero, is that your motorcycle can grow with you.
Well, presumably as a learner rider, having that ability to change the way the bike runs is a real benefit, because you can turn the power right down, presumably, ride it casually and safely, and then when you get a bit more confident, put a bit more power in.
Exactly. So if you're buying the S for your 17, 18-year-old, you're very excited, trigger-happy 17, 18-year-old who you don't necessarily fully trust on a beautiful full-blown motorcycle like a Zero S with all that torque available, download the app. You can climb into the settings and restrict it in whichever way possible. You can really customize our bikes however you want. You can have sport mode acceleration with eco mode regen. You can put it in between. You can really play around with the settings. So yeah, they're endless. I've been with the brand for almost 4 years now. I haven't even touched the surface of what's capable from a technical point of view
I've read somewhere that you have the highest energy density batteries in the industry. I have no idea what that means.
No idea. You're asking the wrong person. What I will say is I'll never throw myself in this conversation of we're saving the planet, combustion's killing the planet, we're green, you're not. I will never throw myself in there because I simply do not know enough about how that all works. But one thing that I have learned with being with Zero and talking to Zero owners, why many of them have come into it, is from that R&D side of that Zero do those things and those measures a lot better than others. I can't fully disclose and climb into that conversation as much as I would like to, but I'd just be lying. And I'm not one of those people that will do that. I do know that Zero do offer the best when it comes to development and how we disperse of the batteries at the end of their life.
We've talked about dealer network a little bit. I think you've got, is it 12 dealers in the UK?
We're up to 12 now again. We did drop a little bit lower than that, but with the new low power, the X line, that's opened up more avenues for us. More dealers can stock these lower priced bikes. We've got a massive network of dealers in this country that are selling these low power vehicles, as you like to call them. So that's opened up great network avenues for us here in the UK that has taken us up to 12, potentially even more now. From a worldwide point of view, it's certainly opened up a much broader network for us. One of the main reasons why we went that route was to open up the network as well.
We get a lot of listeners in Scandinavia, Australasia and the US as well. Presumably you've got a big dealer network in the US.
Massive with the US being a Californian company. We've just relaunched Australia now. It was there with a distributor. We've got a new distributor who's doing great things there. And then, we've got a great European network. The last I saw was just over 90 dealers in the European network alone.
So how do we try one of these here fancy electrical motorcycles of which you talk?
The best thing is you can climb onto our website. If you go zeromotorcycles.com, right at the bottom, you've got to scroll through our beautiful, colorful, amazing range of motorcycles. Right at the bottom, there's a tab there that says request a demo. Click on that, type in your information. Because of your postcode, it'll send it to your nearest dealer. That nearest dealer will be in contact with you to say, right, what bike are you interested in? Have all those conversations with you and then arrange for you to climb on a bike. The second best alternative is, again, on the website or on the Facebook page, which is Zero Motorcycles Europe. Just keep a lookout for the nearest event that's going on, either from ourselves or at a dealer level. That's the perfect opportunity. There's no sales pitch. It was the same with ABR. There's no sales pitch involved. We're not there yet. It's about this, being able to control the narrative, because unfortunately in the digital world, we can't go pick fights with people on a keyboard. It's just not the right way to do it. Face-to-face conversations are the best way. Come try the bike. There it is. And what I tend to do is, there's the key to the bike. Go ride it. Go on 30 minutes. Come back. Deal with the smile and bring that person, gentleman or lady, back down to earth. You can't help but be overwhelmed by the experience of riding a Zero or an electric motorcycle, especially for the first time. While it's completely different, you're sitting there going, I'm on a motorcycle, but I'm hearing and seeing things that I've never heard or seen before. I'm doing a lot less because my left hand foot aren't doing anything. And I'm twisting this thing and it's just going. You're on like a magic carpet ride. It's the best way to describe riding a Zero. After that 30-minute ride or whatever it is, there's still so many questions. You can't base buying the motorcycle on, well, it's great. I love the torque and everything. This is fantastic. There's still, well, how do I charge it? Where do I charge it? Does it fit into what I use a motorcycle for? Does it fit into my daily commute? Does it fit into my weekend rides? And that's where we've got to have the face-to-face conversation. So that's why I always urge people, get to your local dealer or to one of our EE tour or ride events that we've got happening around Europe and here in the UK, and have that face-to-face conversation. Motorcycle Live in November, we'll have it. We'll have test ride bikes available, but they're out of our hands. It's held by a third-party company that does the test rides. But we do have a stand there. Just come talk and have this conversation, as we did at ABR. If you have the conversation, it's a lot easier to understand and to go, with Nathan as well. He made some really valid points, but I was there to kind of go, well, it's valid, but look at it like this. And then it might look differently. And there's ways that I have no answer for, where you're absolutely right. I'm never going to get that Harley Davidson or that BMW GS rider to go electric, and no problem with that. But there are a lot of people that if you break down, as I mentioned earlier, if you break down your ride and what you're using your motorcycle for, man, a Zero or an EV bike just ticks your boxes more than you know.
A massive thank you to Robert for doing that. Some quite interesting points you made there. I think real good food for thought. I've also got lined up a really old friend of mine who is now a professor of sustainable transportation at Coventry University, my mate Johnny. He's a bit of an expert in using hydrogen for a fuel in vehicles. So I'm going to get Johnny on pretty soon to talk about the potential, where we are with the technology currently, and will it actually work for motorcycles. And he's also the coolest guy I know, so he will have some awesome stories, not necessarily about transport or about motorcycles, but fascinating character. I look forward to hearing that one. Massive thanks again, Robert. We'll see you soon. Thanks for listening. We really do appreciate it. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and if you really appreciate what we do, please consider supporting us on either Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. Links are available on our website, tampodcast.com, where you can also go to our store, that's a shop in English, and buy some branded stuff. Please keep listening and, more importantly, spreading the word. Right, that's it. Just a final word from one of our sponsors, and we'll see you next time. Are you heading out on an adventure? Whether you're tackling the Tet or hitting the green lanes, don't forget to pack the Pits and Bits Towel Off Body and Hair Wash range. It's the ultimate waterless wash. Just pour it on, rub it into a foam and towel it off. That's it. No water, no rinsing, no fuss. It's lightweight, smells amazing, and most importantly, it gets rid of mud, sweat and odours fast. Perfect for when you're off the beaten track. Stay fresh, go further, and do it all sustainably. Grab yours now at pitsandbits.co.uk, and don't forget to use the code TAMP, TAMP at checkout for a massive 20% off.